everyone to the LEC and an all-time classic in our league, G2 Esports facing off against Fnatic. And we had a different classic yesterday as we saw Mad go up against G2. So I think we should just take a quick look at the draft and remind ourselves, not that we really need to, because we got to see Caps play Neeko. So let's see who he was playing alongside. Nocturne, obviously, in the jungle. That was definitely a popular choice that we've just seen in the last game as well.
It definitely was. And I've seen a lot of Nocturne around the world, but Nocturne just isn't doing it for me. I feel like if you have a good peel-back comp, Nocturne falls off really easily. And in this game, they had Xayah Milio, which I feel like with Wukong as a disruptor, it's really hard to gap close with the Nocturne. Despite G2 getting ahead in the early mid-game skirmishes, it's great. But once you start falling behind, and even in an even game state, I feel like the Nocturne is just there to press ult. And every time he goes in, he's a basic free kill. So it's almost like a Guardian Angel, 6 seconds of paranoia that doesn't really give you much in the late game.
I also just feel like in general yesterday, you know, it's picked into the Xayah. You already knew what was going on. And while you have the tether with the fear that can do something, like if you're quick, it becomes difficult. But to me specifically, he's just one of those champions where either you design him where you have multiple members diving in on the back line and just blow someone up, or you have someone that can actually just have team fighting like they can in flank we've seen with Nocturne. But it didn't work out yesterday, and you can see, you know, the damage graph there as well. We had a Matt man on Matt Lions.
Yeah, and G2 was ahead. G2 should have won that game. Like, I think the draft wouldn't have really mattered if they didn't throw it all away, right? These are just the nooks and crannies of G2 just liking to play really high, volatile, like scrappy games. The Lucian Nami was great. Caps Neeko was good again, but they need to clean it up. Other teams like Mad Lions will just play a lot of scaling. You know, Fnatic similarly. Yesterday they played Kindred, Aphelios, Yuumi, and they were just playing to scale. So if you're playing these early to mid-game compositions, there will be holes in your draft the later the game goes on.
And listen, Caps had a lot of fun yesterday on the Neeko as well. At times where it looked great, or at times where it looked like this. But even these moments kind of worked out a bit. And I will be honest, I was a bit happier when I saw G2 lose in a way like this. I know that sounds really weird, but it's just due to the fact that it looked happy, right? It was
they always do this.
And it was like, oh, let's push our limits. Let's see how far we can go. This was better than the recent slump we've seen from them. In the recent slump, they didn't look like themselves, specifically Caps as well. But it was a bit more hopeful loss, despite them definitely should have winning this game.
I can see where you're coming from. The only problem I have is like G2 always lose games like this, and every time we're like, oh, their early game's good, their mid game's good, and then they just happy little accident. It's a game, and then you know they'll tweet on social media, haha, we lost again. You know, it's like, come on guys, like let's clean it up and close these games out.
It's such a difficult thing, isn't it? Because we've only got 3 weeks of regular season now that you can't really afford to have Caps having too much fun. But it was really good to see him actually feel that he's establishing himself on a champion again, because that's when we get claps, it just kind of collapsed partway through that game.
It did. And on paper, they are looking like one of the strongest teams in the league, as expected. And that's why I think it's such an important game for Fnatic, because Fnatic have come in with this brand new roster. We've talked about Noah a lot. We've talked about Trymbi, who I think has been a pivotal point of this bot lane change, because I feel like you look at Noah, you put the spyglass underneath him and you say, wow, his Aphelios is great. He's come from KT Challengers, all that thing from the LCK, and he's been doing great in the Ultra Liga. How's he going to do on the LEC stage? He does fantastic, but I think Trymbi being next to him is so important to that.
Well, let's move on to Fnatic. They're currently 2-0 at the top of the table. So here are some of their voice comms from week 1.
Hello.
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 Look on Xayah, look on Xayah, look on Xayah, look on Xayah. We're fighting with Xayah. Xayah's one.
I'm dead.
Xayah's 1 HP, Xayah's 1 HP. We win this fight if you play slow. I'm looking for her, okay? I'm kind of on a mission. Look at me.
No, I'm not going there, okay?
I know.
I go farm.
Yeah, they're trolling. Guys, go, Ahri, I have IV. You can. Okay, nice. Let's fucking go. Nice. Okay, play with Aphelios. Okay, nice.
Go back.
No.
Okay.
I'm fighting this.
Hey, close to me.
Yes.
Good job.
Very simple. Rakan is one. Fight. Oh my days! Guys, go. No. Come top.
Okay,
Very important.
I drink water.
Yeah, don't worry. Guys, back. Zeri ult. Back. Play with Cassandra. Okay? Oh my god.
I shield you.
Holy.
Well, actually, she's dead.
I'm crazy.
Okay, she's dead.
Nice.
It just sounds like they've brought life into the team. I've never heard Trymbi not only talk, but swear so much in a single game. And then Noah's just sitting there laughing, being like, haha, okay, I'll drink some water. Like, this team looks like they're having so much fun.
You also just take into context that Trymbi is literally paying Yuumi here, and when he's like, holy, he's literally just doing nothing and just watching Noah while he's holding in space and him doing things on Aphelios. Like, he's just there for the ride.
Yeah, and Trymbi on Koi, oftentimes, you know, I think a lot of the Koi discussion in the off-season when they made that video, they were like, you know, when you're together in a relationship, relationship, or you're together for so long, there can be things that kind of rub against each other emotionally, and you don't get over problems as quickly, perhaps. And that's something that they struggled with in the team. And Koi removing Trymbi makes you think and allude to that problem being him with one of the players or a couple of the players. And so I think that he was going through a tough time in Koi, but now I think that he's in Fnatic and he's got a new environment around him. He's really thriving.
Yeah, but it's not just like Trymbi is thriving alone now. It's like this substitution coming in has really brought life to the entire team. And I'm not just talking about voice comms, I'm also talking about the play. Oscar has been phenomenal. Yes, he's played Cassante, but he's looked great doing it as well. And the rest of the team too is really playing. The 2v2 mid jungle is finally working as well, and we didn't see that as consistently in some of the earlier splits too. And it's just everyone has become on the same page in team fights, which was very rare, but they're also hungry, and it also just feels like Trymbi is bringing a big voice to the team with how adamant he is at the shot call.
And he's bringing that much needed sense of identity. Oscar yesterday told Trouble, I'm the weak side king, ha 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 ha. He knows what he needs to do for the team. Trymbi is also calling the shots now. It felt sometimes like Humanoid wasn't that confident in directing the team, but Trymbi clearly from the voice comms knows what the team needs to do.
A lot of things have gone positive for Fnatic. That's why we're highlighting them so much, and I think this is the split they need to pull it together if they want to make top 6, if they want to get to Worlds. G2, although it's a best of 1, will be a tough competitor to get through from the get-go. And I think the beauty of all of this is the mid jungle's playing well, yes, but the looking glass has come off Oscar now. I feel like everyone was zooming in on Oscar as this new signing on Fnatic. Is this going to work? And just criticizing all of his mistakes. Now everyone's looking at the bot lane. Oscar has just been chilling. He's doing his job. He's doing well. And I think he's growing throughout the year. So there's so many positives for Fnatic. They just need to keep it going.
That's one of the things that Oscar needed as well. He needed some faith and he needed some time, and Fnatic established that when he came into the team in the spring split. That's what they were going to give him. So despite that shaky start, he knew he had the backing of his team. And now we're clearly seeing it pay off, and we're definitely seeing it pay off, of course, in our old-timers, the mid-jungle, Humanoid and Razork. However, they do have one more match to play. It is against their old adversaries, G2. So who is going to be the victor in this one? We'll soon find out as we head over to Quickshot and Dagda.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Welcome back to the cast today. Hello, BGs and ANBs. I'm Quickshot, joined by Dagda. Fnatic are 1 win away for going 3-0. The last time that they won more than 3 games in a row was in winter correction, 4 games in a row. So getting there, I think listening to Trymbi and looking at how he and Noah interacting, I think part of the reason Trymbi could talk quite as much as he did, even though we know he's a loud player, I do think playing Yuumi helps a little bit, because you do end up being that commander overseer type.
Yeah, you don't have to think about what your hands are doing, so you have more time for just voicing. You know, that's how it works. But I gotta say, this is the first time in a long time I am so excited for Fnatic.
Can they beat G2? Can they beat G2?
That's the question. I'm so ready. We gotta find out.
Way. They can, but will they? We'll find out as you're loaded to drafts. G2 Esports bouncing back from a defeat yesterday. I don't want to say it was entirely Caps' fault, but I do think it was that Neeko control ward engage 4v5 that cost them yesterday. I do, however, love, I think Jacobs was saying a little bit like G2 limit testing a little, like feeling Neeko out. Losing 1 game for a team that is already in the season finals, not the end of the world. I think coming up against Fnatic, G2 will definitely have a point to prove, especially after yesterday. So if Fnatic pull this off, not only are you excited to watch it, as am I, Dagda, it is going to be probably against a fired up and a focused G2.
Yeah, I think that's the big question here, especially as you know, G2, like, yes, they're already there in the season finals, but I think the big question mark here is, well, sorry, not the question mark. They know that this team really wants to make sure that they can actually win the split again. This is a team that wants to win everything, not just show up at one time.
Completely agree. And Berlin! Yuumi is banned! Come on, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else. We had a little bit of a interesting game between Koi and Mad. The 2 new kids on the block, the 2 new kind of powerhouses. Now we got the classics, predate both of those respective orgs. Yuumi, Blitzcrank, Vi removed. Draven LeBlanc, I'm anticipating Milio to be this final ban. It is not. So what does Mikyx prioritize? Do they go for that first pick? Do they feel comfortable running something like Rakan or something like that?
Milio, Neeko, they're the 2 that I'm keeping my eyes on right now, because it is going to be the Milio on that bottom side. But I mean, look, I think Milio is just such a strong champion, and something as well. Like, Hansam has literally just played Lucian every single game so far, so I think it's going to be a similar point, but it's actually going to be the Lucian taken away here. by knowing Trymbi, they want to try and move away from being this late game scaler to going, hey, look, we can also play for these lane advantages. So Neeko, Lucian, Nami, going to be the 3 picks here for Fnatic. And now it's a question mark of Hansama. Do you want to go for the Aphelios, or what is going to be the game plan here? What do you just want to go Xayah? Like, do you want to try and match it early? But it looks like instead it'll be G2 going to go for that late game scaling.
Is Lucian Nami in the hands of Noah and Trymbi to be able to stand up to Hansama and Mikyx? It would be a hell of a statement for the two new members on the Fnatic squad to theoretically have this lane dominant duo, and let's just live in the world where they can take control, because I think it will be crucial. You cannot allow Milio and Aphelios to scale up into that late game at all.
But I think the thing is as well, it actually gives you like a certain amount of range to try and play around in these fights as well. Like the Lucian could land out stuff with the culling if you're an Aphelios, but now you've actually got to run into a Nami wave. You've got to run into a Neeko as well. So at least for Fnatic, they have an opportunity to try and set themselves up nicely for team fights here if they want to try and go for something along those lines. Even when you look at like junglers, I imagine going to be the point of access here for G2, making sure you get rid of like Wukongs and that kind of stuff. So then you're not just lending yourself even more to this Fnatic composition, having a good amount of kite back potential.
Well, what are the other options then? If that Wukong, the likes of Sejuani, options that could be removed. You also need to look at these solo laners here. With LeBlanc removed from the pool, as well as that Jace now. Kindred the next ban. So one of those additional tools that can be hugely problematic. Makes it even harder, obviously, if someone jumps forward. But Fnatic, one more ban here before we start to look at this next phase. So junglers, because I'm assuming that Neeko's going to go mid lane. Could go jungle as well, actually thinking about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, but I imagine it is going to go into mid lane for Humanoid. I still think if you get the opportunity as Razork to go for something like the Wukong, you can. And I think Razork has had a phenomenal weekend. In both games that we've seen him, he's gotten control early. He's been ganking mid, he's been ganking bot, making sure that he's consistently able to get control of the early stages for Fnatic and then lean into that late game. So it's actually going to be the Nocturne taken off the board, so G2 not wanting to get that combo across. But I think this sets up nicely then for the Wukong pick.
If you were to be a little bit judgy, do you think Wukong would have been a stronger ban? I mean, obviously, if Razork ends up going Viego instead, kind of removes that from the equation somewhat. Again, another champion that can both go forward and backwards. I also think the idea of stealing the Aphelios can be helpful too.
Yeah, I think this is Razork saying, hey, look, I think I can have a bigger impact pre-level 6 with the Viego and trying to get our lanes ahead, because I think you trying to look for early skirmishes, trying to look for early duels against the Maokai alongside this Neeko having shove in the mid lane. But I think the biggest problem then is then as you start to lean into these later game fights, there's no one really to try and block up something like the Maokai ultimate. The advantage you have with a Wukong is you can use his clone to disengage that, but you can see G2 are going, hey look, we're going to put 2 mega tanks in front of you. We're going to have this Aphelios with Milio doing a ton of damage from long range as well, thanks to the buff from Milio. So as long as you can have something safe, like maybe even an Ahri, or maybe not an Ahri, but like something along these lines that's just a safe mid lane. Okay, so it is going to be the Ahri, but something just a safe mid laner that can play for team fights, that can try and like follow up and just set up this Aphelios is going to be perfect.
Well, there we go. With that Ahri now locked in, the question will be, what does it get locked in here for this top lane here for Oscarinin? He knows he's running into K'Sante. He knows he's got that front line to deal with. And the early game is going to be so intriguing and interesting here for me. I think obviously you start to get terrified once you see K'Sante, Maokai, Aphelios start to scale up, backed up by the Milio, and with Malphite locked in. I mean, this could not be a more clear game plan from Fnatic.
Yeah, I think you really did need some sort of big engage tool here, and even a front line for Fnatic. So I do like the Malphite pick, especially when you look at the damage there as well. Heavily on the AD focus here. Yes, you've got like AP mid jungle, which is going to help out to a certain extent, but the large portion of this damage is going to be coming from Hansama. Now, again, with the item changes that we saw to AD carries, because it's Milio plus like Ardent Sensor and these kind of things, you do get a bit of mixed damage coming through from Hansama, but I still think the Malphite going to work out really well here and just enable now things like the Viego to follow up, the Neeko to get in range, and even Nami tidal waves to follow up.
Help me understand if this is a fair statement or not.
Okay.
I think this game will revolve around whether or not Fnatic can find and shut down Hansama.
Yes.
And if he's got fancy footwork, can use the K'Sante and the Maokai to stay safe, it becomes real scary for Fnatic.
Yeah, 100%. Like, Lucian, Nami, you are playing to win lane, especially with the rest of the composition, win the mid game as well. So if you do not get the ball rolling for Fnatic, it's lights out and G2 can just scale to infinity.
Berlin, I have a question for you. Do you think Fnatic goes 3-0? Make some noise if you think Fnatic will close this one out. If they are cheering over that, didn't quite hear the question. A lot of G2 fans shaking their head as we load up onto the Rift. G2 taking on Fnatic. Let's go! go! Summer Split, G2 vs Fnatic. Okay, so just quickly. That's a Fnatic chant with a lot of volume. A lot of volume.
I mean, let's be real, Fnatic hasn't had a lot to get excited about for a while, so I'm kind of jumping on the bandwagon here as well. Fnatic have been looking damn good, and I'm so excited to see now what Noah and Trymbi can do here. They've been such a focus for this new Fnatic, and now staying away from the Aphelios, going for this early aggression. We have to see if this look is going to look good for Fnatic.
Listen, Dagda, you needed to listen to the last words I said after yesterday's games. I said, do not get excited for Fnatic yet. It's 2 games.
I know.
However, I do think it is entirely fair to say that this is the best look that we've seen in a while. And from the play that has looked good, I think it is the most excited that I have been for the squad. 2 first strikes there on the side of Fnatic. Noah and Trymbi almost ran into Hansama and Mikyx. And I will just say that today in Berlin, the Fnatic fans are significantly louder than G2. There was an attempt at a G2 call just a moment ago. And I am so happy to be riling everybody up. But Dagda, let's follow Razork. Let's talk about whether or not what the decision-making can actually help him find a lead there for Humanoid or Noah or Trymbi, because this Viego, I think, as you mentioned, has the possibility to come online earlier.
Yeah, and I think the big factor that we've seen for Razork, even talking about in interviews, is the fact that Trymbi now coming into the team has taken a lot of that shot calling away from Razork in the early stages. So he's been much more able to just focus on his own game plan. And we've seen the results. He's been so good at getting into these lanes and affects them early, even having some super creative pathing on the Kindred yesterday, like hopping over Dragon Walls, then hop over the Scuttle Crab Ward to get everything that he needed done. So I'm expecting Razork here to try and see if he can have that moment where immediately moving down towards his bot side, he should be separated from Yike, who's going to move up towards his top end. And after you start to get this first reset in, what can he do? Although, as I say that, Yike maybe look for something a little bit different. Was considering going to the bot lane, but not actually going to go for anything here.
Not just yet. Razork, by the way, currently moving towards his blue buff. Like just throwing out some of those visions with a sapling toss. We caught a quick glimpse there of Oscarinin being pushed in by BrokenBlade. I'll take a quick moment to be selfish. That Shamrock Malphite skin was the first skin I ever purchased in League of Legends, back when I played Malphite AP mid lane in 2011. So a long, long time ago. Oscarinin right now under threat and under pressure.
So do you feel devalued now that Chromas just exist and you could have just...
Hugely I'm tilted. And of course, Hansama right now pushing into Trymbi. But of course, now joined by Shamrock Wilder himself, you know? So it brings pride to Islands. All right, Razork, is there any shenanigans afoot? The tower is obviously a consideration. The wave is pushing a little bit towards Hansama, but he steps right into the stun. Ghost has been used. Mikyx chunked down from the Lightbringer. Healing Ghost used. Hansama stepped up just a few seconds too early. They're fancying a dive, Dagda.
Yeah, you've got no help here. Even the mid lane is pushed in. Razork just trying to keep Hansama and Mikyx away from the turret. You either lose your life or you lose this wave, and it's no good spot for G2 at all.
Okay, they haven't got the kill, but they will be able to put damage. They will be able to deny CS. It's a +7 for now. And that, like, you're talking seconds difference. Hansama was just moving up toward that tri-bush, gets jumped on by the Blade of the Ruined King. And Oscarinin actually trading well into BrokenBlade, but here comes Yike. And Torfort strikes forward as well as the footwork, and Oscarinin forced to flash away to safety. So it is a juicy target, and that's kind of what you expect. Season 1 champ versus Season 13 champ.
Razork's not done, though. He wants to immediately go mid for caps.
Channeling, channeling, channeling. Looking for the CC. He finds it. Connects. Flashes away to safety. Human's got the flash to chase. The root comes up with a knockback from Yike. Sapling toss will slow down any further chase, and Yike forced a flash for his life. Fnatic have come out swinging.
But this is what we were talking about for Razork specifically. He's been so good at getting into these lanes and affecting them. Bot lane now in favor of G2. Mid lane should be good as Razork just manages to dodge away from that charm. But Caps forced away from the mid lane tower. Fnatic controlling the early game.
500 gold lead for now. Summoner spells blown aggressively, but crucial to acknowledge. Razork and Humanoid Not finding any further kills with that. Top lane under some threat. Recall is interrupted. Oscarinin spin the disc, bro. 5 seconds on the cooldown, can't chase him further.
Razork, though, hasn't gone for the reset. Took the Raptors and then wants boss.
All right, let's find the CC. Has to connect. Mickey still got that flash available to him. Hansama holding on to it. Does flash away. Doesn't get caught out by that Aqua Prison. And all of a sudden, Fnatic maintain these minor advantages, but it hasn't conceded a kill yet for G2.
You can see the game plan here, though, already for Fnatic. You see the Razork goes towards the Raptors as they respawn on Yike's side. So now Yike has less opportunity to actually stick around on this bottom side. And you've got options here as Razork could start to actually teeter down into this bottom side if he wants to. But I think the most likely game plan here is Raptors into Wolves, into Grugs, and into your From, and then try and make a play onto bot side with a dive again as that wave is about to crash from the rest of Fnatic.
Okay, I want to like set some kind of objectives here for Fnatic's comp. I understand what I'm about to say is a little bit reductive, but I feel that Fnatic have to generate a lead. I think it has to be a fairly sizable one with this comp going into the mid game for me to fully believe they can close out against K'Sante, Maokai, Aphelios. So I want you to keep an eye on that and tell me, like, if you think they're generating enough advantages, because Razork has got a lot of summoners blown but hasn't found those kills. It's actually a minor CSE for Hansama right now. The fact they're even in the bottom lane, despite the pressure, is a good thing. And Humanoid, on the other hand, he does have a significant advantage thanks to those ganks mid lane.
But this is what we were talking about. I think with this wave that's about to crash, there's an opportunity for Razork to try and come down again into this bottom side of the map. That's why you can see him immediately moving down. Spent a little bit of time onto the top side, so won't be able to pick up his Gromp en route, but still an opportunity. May just turn towards the Dragon, though, as he don't really have full control over mid and maybe worried about Caps trying to match any sort of play on bottom side.
I love potential Dragon stacking here for Fnatic. I think they do need a little bit of scaling in their back pocket. Also, if they can secure an early Dragon, use that Lucian Nami and the advantage mid lane, that's how you can pull G2 towards you. Make the map smaller, make them group up, and then your Neeko and Malphite engages jumping onto Hansama will be huge. He's still flashless, by the way. Noah's got the flash and the cleanse available to him. Dragon once again started by Razork. Oscarinin gets pulled backwards, a lot of damage secured, time to go all out, and the Force was unstoppable in retreat. Noah and Trymbi just trying to prevent G2 from interrupting this Dragon. Down to 1,000 HP, should be secured by Razork.
You can see, though, because G2 are trying to play in the defensive, Fnatic are kind of getting to pull them multiple different directions. Caps had to try and cover a potential Dragon initially or a dive on bot side, so it gives Humanoid the opportunity to shove it in mid. Now, because Caps is pulled back to mid, that's when Fnatic actually take the Dragon. So at the moment, Fnatic playing well around the advantages that they've set up. It's just a case of trying to keep this pressure up and available. And again, a lot of that is coming from Razork, who just hasn't quite resulted in a kill yet.
Not yet. Also, look at the itemization difference in this bottom lane. Berserker's Greaves for Hansama, as well as the Longsword BF and Longsword for Noah. So he's going to be relying on that movement speed from the ebb and flow, as well as Lucian's dash and the E, to be able to get the damage down. If any CC lands on Hansama, I think he is in a lot of trouble because of that disparity with the BF sword. And right now, it's Mikyx that's taking the brunt of it.
And I think that's why you go for the boots in the early stages, try and dodge away from a lot of what Trymbi's offering, but we do have to look up towards the top side of the map as...
Oh, waiting to see if the Cozy Campfire will help out. Aqua Prison comes back and Hansama just shreds through Trymbi, turning him to sushi.
I didn't expect Hansama to just be able to rip through him like that, but immediately G2 have it. They're also on towards the Rift Child and Razork. Can he try and get in here? Oscarinin stops the reset.
I mean, you can see the difference there. Berserker's Greaves allowing him to chase. Razork interrupted. Nature's Grasp thrown down. Humanoid coming to back up. Pop Blossom available. And Yike has been able to escape. Humanoid flashes, gets the knockup, gets the tangled Bob, and Yike flashes to safety. Heartbreaker used from Razork, and Heartbreak for Fnatic. They do not get the kill. Yike escapes with his life.
And G2 win on both sides. They manage to get away. They get the Rift Child. You get that play on the bottom side as well for Hansama. And now they're just in such a commanding position. You needed this early Rift Child as Fnatic to try and start to snowball this game. Try and use the fact that Noah was getting some chip damage onto that bot side turret, but not having that available now just buys a lot of time for G2 to continue stacking up this Aphelios.
I mean, the kill secured in the hands of Hansama's Aphelios. He was able to dodge the Aqua Prison. That would have been the difference maker for Trymbi. And that means that it's G2 sitting even. They've got the potential to unlock more gold with a plate gank. And Razork's looking for the first kill here for Fnatic. This should be easily secured, and it is. Goes the way of Razork. Fnatic even out the kills.
Yeah, and at least going over towards the Viego as well should be good. I wasn't sure if Razork was going to be able to make much happen, especially since he burned his flash in that last engage, but no, it doesn't matter. They're able to pick up that kill. And now again, though, I think for G2, it's a case of top lane's gone a bit awry, doesn't matter too much. We need to try and focus on this bottom side. As long as you can try and make sure that this Aphelios is going to be staying out of harm's way, you're in all right shape. Cap's starting to lean up towards this top side. We'll just get some vision down. Wants to try and see if he can spot out where Razork is going to be in the next couple of moments.
I think it's very important to note that Humanoid still got that big lead in the middle lane, plus 20 CS for now. Cap's not going the same route as Larson in the previous game. Larson rushed that static shift first item. Not going to be the case right now. And for Humanoid, I do think if he's able to be one of those tool makers, it'll be up to Humanoid and Oscar to buy a little bit of time here for Noah, because Noah and Trymbi, they have not built up the lead that you would have hoped for from a Lucian Nami duo.
Especially when they got that early assist, you know, pushing off Hansam and Mikyx. You kind of expect them to be able to do a little bit more, but you can see how scared they are with this Milio there. This Milio is just so incredibly strong alongside something like an Aphelios, because it does give you that increased range, the shield giving you the increased movement speed, plus the damage to boot, so it can be incredibly difficult, which is why I think we need to see Razork now starting to try and get in onto this bottom side. But you can look at where Yike is, the Demonic Embrace now completely, he's going to move in towards this bottom side as well. As long as they can, again, just match a lot of what Razork is doing, they're going to be in a good spot.
Culling is available. Hansama steps forward. Cozy Campfire is down. Here comes Razork, channeling it up. Waiting for the CC, finds it. The arrive from Humanoid, won't be able to find the Pop Blossom. Tidal Wave didn't do enough. Noah has held the trigger on the culling. And Oscarinin has TP up, so if they continue to apply pressure, there is another tool, but another attempt is made, and an unsuccessful one for Fnatic.
A lot invested by Fnatic to make that play happen. Caps is going to get that played in the mid lane. You already burnt everything by Trymbi as well. Flash gone again on towards the Nami, so without getting much, G2 are going to be happy to capitalize. Don't forget, Rift Herald is here for Yike as well. This could be the mid lane turret going down.
I mean, so Humanoid commits the TP. They lose the flash on Trymbi. Hansama did need to flash to safety. So that was really the only advantage you can speak of. Noah has got himself the Gale Force and those free-ass boots for now. So we need to see whether or not that itemization advantage can be used, because for the time being, Razork has ganked, what, 2-3 times in the bottom lane? And it hasn't built that lead. So we're dead even at 12 minutes. As far as the kills and the goals are concerned, we are 5 seconds from the next dragon, and it looks like G2 want to at least contest this one. They were trying to contest the first.
I like the call here from G2 though. Get mid prio means that if Fnatic threaten Dragon, cool, we just take mid turret, and you can kind of see it happening right now. Caps just putting that pressure down, will get the turret for himself, but now it gives opportunity for G2 to come in as a group. Hansam is very separated though if they do want to fight this.
All right, let's take a look here. Yike, Nature's Grasp is available. Oscarinin can TP in. So can BrokenBlade. Teleport's being channeled. 1, 2. Dragon's down to 1200. Razork goes forward. The Dragon is secured by G2. Now the fight breaks out. The first target is going to be Razork. He's taken down. Noah gets his first of the game. The culling chipping away. Unstoppable force at the ground slam. And Oscarinin takes down Caps. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 members dead. 5 Fnatic members killed.
G2 were angry after yesterday, and Fnatic are the ones that are on the punishing block. They try to go for the Dragon. G2 had control of mid, and the play is snuffed out immediately by G2.
Man, that just did not work out at all. Dragon secured 3 kills for Hansama. Plates picked up at a 2,500. I mean, Dagda, where did it all go so wrong?
The big play was Humanoid trying to get onto Mikyx, on towards the TP coming in, but they're not able to do anything, right? Because immediately as this happened, Mikyx flashed away, Caps manages to get the W to walk out, and then Hansama manages to walk the entire way around, so they deal with the mid lane, and this is the 2 big beefcakes we were talking about, with K'Sante and the Maokai to buy a ton of time in that front line, and from that point forward, G2 are just slowly able to work their way through. Noah, yes, he had the Gale Force completed. This is where you're supposed to be strongest, but if the team fight isn't set up properly for you, there's very little you can do.
No, it didn't lay that CC at all. I think Trymbi's Tidal Wave was on cooldown. Wasn't available to, layer it and try and help out. Had the Tidal Wave been thrown down to be a disrupting force, then the Pop Blossom could have been layered. It wasn't. So that means Fnatic lose the Dragon, lose the fight, and now you've already got a very fed Aphelios in that bottom lane.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of where you can see the, yes, Neeko can be this great engage tool, but she does have to kind of give herself away a little bit when she goes in, and teams can react. Humanoid may not react though.
All right, waiting for the charm to come out here from Caps. Uses that second Spirit Rush and does connect. Doesn't have enough damage just yet as the clone comes forward. One last dash under the tower available. Humanoid had the flash, was confident that he wasn't going to get taken down by Caps just there, and manages to get back to tower.
And this is why I wanted to come back to this point, is like, I think if you end up having Oscarinin come in and he is the main engage tool, then it becomes easier for Humanoid to try and follow up on these engages. But if Humanoid is trying to get these flash plays, and it's also him available as Neeko, it becomes very much easier for G2 to react to that. So I think taking a step back here is Fnatic, playing these fights slower, will end up playing off of them. But it's now these skirmishes once more where G2 have looked strong all weekend and they're starting to come back once more.
Yeah, of course, teleport was available there for Humanoid. I held my breath wondering if Fnatic wanted to contest this, and it kind of looks like they want to. If the CC can glide, all the ultimates are available here on the side of Fnatic, and they are looking for the fights.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to keep Caps interested. They don't know exactly where the Ahri is. They don't want to full commit for this, which is why they're playing so safe, but they could even push in onto that bot lane turret. Humanoid going to reset though. Now this is going to turn into a fight.
Watch Oscar. Unstoppable forces available. Hunt Summer, no flash. Nature's Grasp thrown out. Needs to be countered with a tidal wave, and it is. Oscarinin cannot even channel the ultimate. Another kill for Hunt. The pop bottom comes out, but the red-white means that G2 have won yet another fight. The re-engage goes forward for Razork. He at least gets something back, but more kills go the way of G2. And they are in absolute control. They've got the Herald to boot.
Fnatic were all over the place in that call. Was Humanoid going for bot terror? Was he resetting the TP in? And by the time they actually decided, G2 had already pulled the trigger. Oscarinin was out of the equation as Fnatic tried to make that play, and despite a really cool plot blossom coming in from Humanoid, it's not enough. Like, watch here, right? As we're starting to come in, now we're getting the TP just to mid lane. And G2 immediately see that. They're like, cool, we're going to toss at the Maokai ultimate. We can kill the Malphite before he really gets a chance to do anything. And knowing this fight isn't really able to follow up onto this equation. So Razork immediately tries to make things happen by ulting in, but it doesn't matter. You're able to deal with this, with Humanoid in the backline as G2, and then it's just a case of having that chase down. Noah will escape with a nice cleanse, but everything else goes completely downhill.
And I think I just have this nagging voice in the back of my head that I think Fnatic needed to pull the trigger first, especially because they were behind in gold already. I know Oscar, had he jumped on Hunt Summer, there was no guarantee he would be there. Humanoid wasn't immediately nearby, but they need to prevent it. They need to slow down, because now that BrokenBlade and Caps are in such a great position, they are taking over the game.
Screw BrokenBlade and Caps. They got a 2,000 gold lead in Hunt Summer. When you talked about like getting this early lead for Fnatic, it's completely gone out the way. So for now, G2, they just have to play this nice and slow. Let Hunt Summer do his job.
The thing that I'm scared about Fnatic here is that even if they can commit and throw everything down onto a flashless first, which could have happened, they then still have to clear everything else up, right? Okay, so we have a very brief pause in the action here. Can I take a look at the standings really quickly? Because Fnatic obviously 2-0 to start out Summer. Looking good, looking confident. I actually like the concept that they had with this comp. Weren't able to build a lead. You can see Mad Lions 3-0. Team Heretics could also go 3-0. And if Fnatic somehow bounce back, could be at the top of the table. But the way it's looking now, G2 may want to balance out the weekend, go 2-1. Thank you, production team, as G2 are now going to push this lead even further. 6,000 gold up. Dragon, number 2. Like you said, a very fed Aphelios, 503, 2 items completed, and he's got both of his subs.
And it's just the fact that none of these plays went correctly for Fnatic in the early stages. A couple of tidal waves going wide, a couple of bubbles not connecting, or even Razork being quite able to finish off the damage that he needed to. Now G2 are in a fantastic spot. They're going to be able to take over Humanoid.
Well, Charm will connect. The root does too. Yike's Nature's Grasp, perfectly planned. And that will be Humanoid rooted up, kill secured. It's Hunt Summer that gets it.
Of course he does. Of course he does. 6-0 now on this Aphelios, and you can see an attempted play from Fnatic in the mid lane to try and match the counter push, but there's nothing they can do. And now G2, they have control over mid, they have control on bot, another tower goes over, and this is 19 minutes. Baron has even spawned, and they're already getting these tier 2s.
I mean, the game has just been so accelerated because of how many kills each of the fights secured, right? It was around a dragon, was around the Herald. Have been used very, very well. Look at that gold difference in less than 4 minutes.
Yeah. And it's been really good stuff to see from G2. Again, this has kind of been where they have actually been really good is, okay, let's try and take skirmishes around the Rift here. Let's set up nice and early for it, play for these team fights, and then make it really difficult for teams to actually play in. at least now the Neeko's on the opposite team, so we won't have Caps trying to make any sort of funky plays. So they can try and play this out nice and slow, but I think they've learned their lesson from yesterday. And as long as they can now shift their attention up towards topside with Hansama, keep BrokenBlade with having pressure in the mid lane, you can start to get more of these outer towers, secure vision for things like the Baron that's up, and just make it impossible for Fnatic to play at this game.
I mean, it feels that way already. 7,000 gold to lead, 2 dragons, 4 towers secured already to nothing. Caps will now be the target. Multiple members of Fnatic moving forward, but they just can't get close up. He has Flash, he has Spirit Rush. You're not going to commit to anything further. If there is a silver lining, and if there's a tiny bit of hope, Fnatic need to get those bounties on those outer towers. They have to claw back this gold deficit. The only thing is, even if they do that, my head is telling me that scaling is in favor of G2, and I think their comp is a little easier to play out as well.
You definitely have the wombo combo potential for Fnatic, which might happen here.
Well, we're going to find out. Tangle Bobs goes out. Sante goes unstoppable for a moment or two. Oscarinin, where is that unstoppable force? Razork running for his life. Fnatic are split. Pop Blossom Flash can be triggered from Humanoid. Won't be able to do so yet. Razork stepping forward. They fancy a fight. It has to work. Oscar's looking for a juicy target. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Flash art. Flash art. Flash art. Goes, he can't fight. Goes forward. Fnatic, remember, they're 7,000 gold down. G2 are respecting the engage. They are respecting the possibility, and that's why they're backing away. Fnatic have been able to actually use the threat of the engage to unlock the tower. Moonlight Vigil not going to do a whole lot, and now all of a sudden, it's the re-engage. Razork ults over the wall to safety. They get the tower. Well, down that amount of gold, I think both teams doing the right thing with their respective comps.
Would have been dangerous for G2 to engage there, though. You didn't have BrokenBlade there, no TP available, and it was still 4 versus 5, so just managing to get away from that is still Razork, but...
Oh, G2 pulling the Fnatic Death Rush! The charm connects! Oscar flashes defensively, waiting for the engage. Humanoid can go forward, hunts. Gale forces in! Doesn't manage to pick up the kill! The all-out does, however, with Hansama down! The kill was secured! The second followed up by Fnatic. BrokenBlade is on the hunt. He's looking for Humanoid, and he finds him. Caps now stepping away. It's a 2-for-2. Follow Noah. Razork is going to be the first target. Caught out by the grass, charmed in place. Now Noah trying to dash to safety, flashing off the relentless pursuit as well. Aqua Prison stops more. 3-for-2. This is not bad for Fnatic considering how far they are behind.
But when the play went their way initially, picking off Hansama, the fact that you're able to get those kills back as G2 is honestly impressive. Like, the main source of your damage was gone, but you're still able to turn it around, and this was just a big mistake coming through from Hansama. Like, great charm, great setup here. Oscarinin forced to flash away, and he's like, okay, I can get enough damage with the Gale Force, but Gale Force now doing that AD damage. Oscarinin has a ton of armor, so you end up just giving out that little bit too much. Even Humanoid flashing forward to predict the flash coming through from Hansama. But this is where you you should have just backed away, right? Humanoid, unfortunately, because he's gone that deep, he's already gone that bit too far. And I think maybe if they get that stun onto Caps, they can turn it, but it actually gives an opportunity here for G2 to reassess the situation, turn it around, and Fnatic are running for the hills.
Well, Fnatic, of course, still significantly far behind. 20 seconds for the next Drake. 2 already picked up by G2. Keep your eyes on those cooldowns. 3 seconds for Unstoppable Force. 6 for Humanoid Pop Blossom. And they're now starting to back away. Caps looking for a charm. This G2 are in this middle lane, and Dagda. Fnatic, I think, understand, or Fnatic feel that the only way they can claw this deficit back is by going for those fights. 2 items have been picked up, Humanoid and Noah. And G2 at least are playing the spacing game, the zoning, playing the distance very well.
They're playing midway very well. It's a case of, hey, look, we know that if you don't have control of River, you can't really contest this on mid push. So they push mid in. That gives them access to River. You can't blind face check this as Fnatic. So Fnatic basically try to run topside and go, look, they have Dragon. Maybe we can bait them into some sort of play at Baron, but even then, their confidence is shy, and they will end up backing away, giving G2 control of the area. Maybe a Trymbi as well.
Ooh, manages to complete that recall. 24 minutes in. Gold lead is still the same. Look at the vision, by the way. G2 Esports have littered the map on Fnatic's side of the rims. Baron is starting to be burned down. 8,000 hit points. Razork, no flash available. Can get over the wall with the ult. Oscar's got that available to him. Caps won't find the charm. And now G2 a little bit split up. Hansama, no flash available to him. He's backed out from the pit. Follow Oscar. He's trying to tag Baron, keeping it low. We're in a shenanigans situation. Tidal wave could be crucial. Roots onto BrokenBlade. Oscar's holding. The ult actually uses it defensively. Baron now down to 2,000. Get inside the pit. It's stolen! It's stolen by Fnatic! But how many can keep the buff? Humanoid channels the pop blossom. Buys enough time for a few more members of Fnatic to run away. But Caps is dashing forward. Finds the charmer to Oscar. He's being chunked down and burned down. Hansama doesn't pull the Moonlight Vigil. Okay, Baron secured. It remains on 3. Fnatic need to use all of those buffs to buy time and to farm up because they are still behind in this game.
But what time are they trying to buy?
Yeah.
You can already see the Aphelios is starting to come online, and the fact that Oscarinin has to try and go defensively with that ultimate, that's the go button for G2. They know they're safe now to go into the pit as long as they can keep eyes on Humanoid, and great steal from Razork will stop G2 from being able to use this Baron buff to secure themselves some things like the Dragon Soul that's going to be up in a moment's time. But G2, like, they're still winning these team fights. They're still coming out with better positioning, and it's Fnatic a little bit late to so many of these plays that are coming back to bite them.
This has been a beautiful game to watch and to cast because I do think Fnatic had successful attempts early. Razork has been really impressive this weekend across all 3 games. However, they were not quite good enough, quite successful enough to find the kills to push that lead further. The reply from G2 in all the skirmishes and fights has been great, and you can see how much respect they are playing Fnatic's composition.
And that's the thing, this is the biggest factor that we've seen from G2 all weekend long, is how good they are at setting up for these objectives. It's earlier resets, it's getting vision beforehand, playing for your midway priority, playing for, if you're going for first Rift Tower, top lane priority first as well. They're dotting their I's across the T's every step of the way, and then it's kind of forcing teams into these uncomfortable spots where they're not quite all as one to go for plays. But now with the Baron buff up and with waves in their favor, Fnatic are grouped up and are trying to see if they can push in, but G2 looking to respond.
Well, let's find out. Razork going forward. G2 can pull the trigger on the engage if they want to. Keep in mind, Caps is not there, but neither is Oscarinin. They're in the top lane. Baron empowered minions helping a little. That's the pullback onto Razork. He uses the ult defensively. Continuing to run that Moonlight Vigil has done so much. Hansama's Gale Force brings home another. And BrokenBlade picks up the second of the fight. Blast Cone to try and chase down. He's found Noah, stabbing him in the face, but the damage reply is gigantic. Noah, as well as Razork, pick it up. The chase over the wall, and Razork continues to run. Flash now used and committed. While all of that was going on, Oscar was forced away from that top lane, and Caps continues to apply pressure. Another skirmish and win here for G2.
Especially when they get this top tier 2 as well for it. Oscarinin doesn't really have any way to deal with Caps, doesn't have the wave clear either, and if you ever try to engage on Caps, it's like, cool, well, I'm just going to end up ulting away as well, and it'll be totally fine. So see Oscarinin trying to get that poke, but I mean, you can see it there, it's next to nothing, so you're kind of safe here as Caps to just keep up this pressure, but the rest of your team is doing the work.
He's a glorified minion buff bot in this 1v1 for now. So obviously Oscar's primary job will be in those team fights to single out one of those members, but look at this. I love how aggressively BrokenBlade and Hansama are working together in this comp.
It's tanked it. The fact that you've got no real frontline here for Fnatic is the biggest problem. So as soon as G2 go in, they're like, hey, look, you can wail on us as much as you want, but your frontline is going to disappear way faster than ours is if we're just going to hit for tat. So the entire way through now, Fnatic, they're pushed back. G2 were able to follow up nicely, and look, BrokenBlade does go that bit too far here. It is a bit of a shutdown there, going over to Noah, 900 gold total, so that'll do nicely. But again, you're a Lucian versus an Aphelios. You're going even on items. This Aphelios has already crested 3.5. He's just in the driver's seat.
It's just like you said, tank diff. Not only are you even on items, but the gold difference, the gold lead, the kill lead. More importantly for me, there's a Maokai, a Milio, and a Cassante sitting in front of that Aphelios. So it's so much, I use this term loosely, so it's so much easier for Hansama to play this game out when G2 are on the offensive. Obviously, when they're playing defensive backing away, you have to respect that Neeko and that Malphite engage.
And I think that's why Milio is such a good first pick in the drafts we're seeing at the moment, because he's just so flexible. You want to pair him with the Lucian, go aggressive, fantastic, he's there. That's why you had to see Fnatic take it away, but actually TP coming through here.
Oh, Chomp's gonna interrupt it. What was Humanoid trying to do? Get in behind the Dragon Pit? G2 4 members inside the river. Caps is a little bit separated. Aqua Prison catches one, but there's no further commit. Caps almost blows up Trymbi, but he's taken down. The CC reply is too much to deal with. They've lost Oscar once again. No ultimate used, no flash used. And inside the pit, the Dragon's down to 2,000 and will be secured. That's the Ocean Soul going the way of G2. In addition to the gold lead, in addition to the tower lead, and Humanoid will just get popped. Moonlight Vigil! Just another. Hansama, 10 kills, 1 death, 8 assists.
Humanoid runs over a sapling as he's trying to escape, but just gives enough of a slow for the Gale Force to come through. And then sniped down by Hansama as well. G2 are looking damn good.
Noah will be killed for the first time in the LEC this game. Fnatic are likely to lose this game for the first time in summer. 2 members standing against 4. G2 pushing forward. Nexus turret number 1 is being focused. Oscarinin still got the ultimate. It's flashed away from. Hansama escapes and Razork is forced to run for his life. And now Oscar is just bounced and bopped backwards and forwards. The Nexus turret falls. G2 will be content with the control that they have. This has been breakneck pace. 29 kills in 30 minutes. 5 dragons, 9 towers. And it has just been fight after fight after fight.
And G2, that's where they've been strongest. They've been really impressed with the way they're able to set up team fights over the majority of the weekend. Yes, we had some funny business yesterday, but Noah.
Oh, Mickey in a little bit of trouble, but so is Razork now. He's running for his life and will be run down and chopped down once again by Hansama. His 11th of the game. BrokenBlade looking to hold in place as many members of Fnatic as he can. All of a sudden, it's a 3 versus 5. Oscar, no ult, no flash, nothing left to play with as a Malphite. There's a minion wave congas its way forward. G2 Esports will look to kill Trymbi or Noah one last time. The Nexus is being focused. 25 kills, a bloodbath, and a slaughter of Fnatic. And they kill him one more time. They go for it. They want to ruin his KDA. Dagda. Instead, G2 will close it out, taking down Fnatic.
A statement game from G2 there. Incredible stuff. Playing for those early skirmishes, playing for the team fight, not falling victim to any of the early plays that we saw coming across from Fnatic towards that bot lane. G2 did a fantastic job of getting control of this game and not letting go of it.
Oh man, that was just a beautiful game to watch, and I think one of the things that I kind of respect and like about Fnatic's approach to it, not only was their game plan pretty clear, they like almost pulled it off, I think they committed to looking for those fights in the 10, 15 to 20, 25 minute mark, but they couldn't find the opportunities. I think if they pulled the trigger a little quicker, maybe it could have had an impact, but G2 respected it so much. That dance around the mid tower was just exquisite.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me here is just kind of showing the difference between how you can set up for objectives really coming into play. Every time we saw Fnatic try and contest first Rift out, it was G2 on the objective first. They're able to set up with the Maokai. You have Oscarinin who's trying to come in from a separate angle, so you can't really play around him particularly well. It felt like G2, because they knew once we get here first and Oscarinin can't really play a factor, we're in a good spot, and they just continuously ran with that over and over, and Fnatic weren't able to do too much.
The other question that I will pose is allowing the Milio to go through in the first pick. Now, the Milio was not, let's say, the problem, quote unquote, right? But that is a bold decision. It's not something you see too many teams doing. So on one hand, I respect it, but obviously the Lucian and the Nami didn't manage to generate the lead that they wanted.
And that's the thing. I think the Milio gives you so much flexibility when it comes into the draft, because it's like, hey, look, Lucian Milio, fantastic. Hey, we look towards Milio and Aphelios, brilliant pairing as well. So it means that you can either force the enemy team to go in towards something like the Lucian, which like Razork tried his damnedest to get to the head. It wasn't enough for Fnatic. So instead, you just get to play for late game and you're much more comfortable as G2.
And that's exactly what worked out. Player of the game nominees at LEC on Twitter, BB, Hunt, or Mikyx. This is actually a really tough one. I think I'm probably going to be between BB and Hunt because I think they both had influence hugely. And I also think part of the reason Hunt could look the way he did is because of how much space and time was bought for him. So, you know, kudos. You got to pick up those kills, but well played. Well, let's find out who wins it in just a moment or two. Hansama is actually standing on stage with Trouble.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Hans, congrats on the victory.
Thank you.
I'm assuming not the weekend you guys had hoped for, but still a pretty positive result. Now, this game looked easy at times, and then it looked very difficult to close out. What was that?
I think the game was hard in early game because they were pressuring a lot. I remember that we had to get escape from the gank from Viego, and they were just pressuring, I think, around the mid bot side. But after that, I think we got a bunch of lead that made the game easier. And then I remember just there was one time that I died. I guess that was difficult.
Yeah.
But I think the game so far was okay, in our control.
Okay, tell the truth. Malphite was picked basically because you picked Aphelios to try and snipe you. After you died to the Malphite, did you become a little bit more aware of how much you overextend in the fights?
Well, the first time I died, I guess I was not reactive enough to flash on his ult when I guessed the first on him. But after, I guess I just have to flash his ult and then it's fine. Because only Malphite can kill me.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about Aphelios a little bit, I tried to heal Sang as well. He said, well, basically whoever gets Aphelios kind of wins the game. He has 62.5% win rate. How do you feel about the champion?
I think Aphelios is strong if he's not getting shut down, if he's not getting focused in the early game and he's free to scale. I think he's one of the best scaling AD, and especially paired with champions like Milio, Yumi, you outscale really a lot, and that was the case already at MSI. And now you have super scaling supports, so it's even deadlier for Aphelios. But I guess in the Balance game, they had Rakan, but Aphelios was having a really good game because he had a really good game. So.
Yeah, and talking about your Aphelios, 37.5 thousand damage. You were top damage meters. I mean, that's not really a surprise. Now, of course, going to N1 this weekend. Next weekend, you guys have SK, Vitality, and Astralis. Who do you think is going to be the strongest opponent out of the three?
I think it's going to be Vitality. I always think that they are a very strong team and they have a lot of potential. And I'm happy to play against them next week.
Okay, and why do you think they have potential? What do they do really well?
Well, I think they have a lot of good individual players. They can make amazing things in the game that you don't really expect. So that's why I say they have a potential.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to watch you guys play against them. Again, congrats for the weekend. And over to you, GB, with your best friend Telestrator.
Thank you very much, Truffle. I appreciate that. Now, very insightful interview, and I was specifically very happy with one of the answers from Handsummer where he said they felt a bit pressured in the early game. Now I want to dive into why they got a bit pressured by Fnatic and what Fnatic actually did very well. So if we take a look at the Telestrator and we just have a look at the map state currently, you can see that Razork have path down towards the bottom side, whereas Yike, if you look at the minimap, is actually up towards the top side of the map. This is going to spell a bit disaster for his bottom lane. As we roll out the clip, you're going to see that this is going to be a stacked up minion wave. Razork's going to be in a position where they can dive after a very good trade by Noah and Trymbi. And because Razork is down towards the bottom side and Yike is up towards the top side, no one is really around to actually help the bot lane of G2 get resources. So they're losing a lot of minions here. So despite not dying, they've lost gold down there. Now up towards the mid lane instead. Razork is still on the move. This is going to turn into another 2v2. The pressure on towards Caps, as we pause the clip right now, is the fact that there's once again a stacked up minion wave. And as we roll out the clip, you're going to see that they're going to try and stop Caps from actually continuing back into this one. He's going to have to go all the way around. So he's missed a minion wave now as well. So if you pause the clip, you can actually see that small gold lead has been accumulated. It's 0.4, but it's also a tempo advantage in favor of Fnatic, with Humanoid suddenly back in lane and Caps still very low. Now let's roll out the clip, because this tempo advantage is something that Fnatic needs to hold on to as well. They need to make sure that they continue with making good plays. The problem for them is that they end up overforcing down in the bottom side. So despite them making a lot of good moves in the early game, when it comes to their TP usage and that final nail in the coffin to really seal that first kill, or, well, more kills for themselves, they don't get it. And despite Caps falling behind in the early game, he suddenly gets all the gold back. They lose out on a lot of minion waves. They lose out on all the gold in the mid lane turret. And suddenly, G2 is back. They will also have their teleports ready. So when the fights start coming around, G2 will suddenly be on even footing. Now, why is that going to matter? I'm not going to tell you. That's going to be over at the analyst desk. So thank you very much for this one.
Thank you very much, Guldborg. I mean, I'll give you a hint, because Fnatic, especially Noah, came to break the peaceful LEC, but they forgot the G2 can fight back and fight back hard.
Yeah, unfortunately, like the 2 versus 2, they fell in the bot lane. So, I mean, things were relatively equal. But when you sort of looked at the composition that Fnatic were running, if they weren't able to snowball through like the strong bot lane, looking for dives and whatnot early on, ultimately it was going to come down to team fighting, coming to find an answer for the Aphelios, which was the Malphite plus Neeko. Those 2 players, right, Oscar and Humanoid, had to be working together to try and snipe out the Aphelios on the backline and shut down that element. If that didn't happen, you're not going to win a lot of fights.
I think the thing that summed up this game really funnily was just the last fight where Humanoid just dies to a tower and a sapling before they can even like re-engage, and all of a sudden they just lost the game like off screen on the abyss of the map. So that was really funny death to kind of sum up this game. I think that you're completely right. You need to get this Lucian Nami ahead. I think Guldborg highlighted really well how they got like mini lane advantages. If they used that TP properly and dove bot, I think the game would have looked a lot different. But I feel like also in fights, I have to give props to G2 because their way of kiting back away from the Malphite was really well. They didn't ever give an angle for a flash Malphite ult or like a Malphite ult on their front line, and so that allowed their backline to play with so much space. This fight, I think Humanoid like griefed the whole fight. I think if he plays this better, then I think Fnatic will definitely win out on this fight. Yeah. Or like they can at least get 1 for 1 despite losing the dragon. But Humanoid really struggled this game to find really good ults. He had 1 5-man ult, and that 1 magical ult by him, there was no follow-up.
Well, the problem is too, it doesn't feel like him and Oscar are like really on the same page, because obviously Hans wasn't even on his screen. He was looking for Caps and for Mikyx on that ultimate. Oscar is really the guy that can go in and set it up, you know, for that ultimate to come in. Obviously, he's in the brush, right? He thinks he has an angle to try and get into the fight, but I think he had to be more patient for the Aphelios and then going in with the Malphite so that you can make sure you just chain that guy into the dungeon.
There's 2 ways Fnatic can play this fight. They have Neeko Malphite, so you can play to just ult the front line with a Lucian culling, get a reset for Viego, and play slowly. The alternative way is the Neeko flank that Humanoid went for there by like one-shotting one of their AD carries, and if you don't one-shot them, force them out of the fight, and then you can play front to back. The problem is they never really got given that front to back, as we'll see team fights roll throughout the discussion. It was oftentimes G2 kiting back, poking them, playing on the Maokai ult, and when the Maokai ult came in, I think Fnatic just got really disrupted.
Yeah, the Maokai ult, like saplings make it really hard to find flank angles, and here, again, it's like Oscar getting caught out very early on into the fight. Humanoid is there, but Oscar dies without ulting. So Humanoid, yes, is able to catch out all these players, but Trymbi's already solo. Razork got chunked out. Like, there was no actual fight left there, but he went for it anyway.
And that was a beautiful example of culling into Neeko ult, into Malphite ult, but there's no Malphite ult, right? And then that gives Viego the reset, and you can see how desperate Razork was for it in the fight. If those 3 conditions are met, then you can definitely roll over G2 in these fights, but they have so much range and they have so much disengage and re-engage with Ahri and Aphelios, with the Milio next to him, that it's really difficult to find that window.
I was going to ask, is there any way to actually get into that back line with this composition we saw from Fnatic, given that we do have that range extension of that combination with the Milio, with the Aphelios?
Flanks is all that matters in that scenario, right? I think Humanoid in the first Dragon fight didn't find it, and I think flanks can work in 2 ways. One, you either make them really worried and then they back away, and that allows you to get more space to work with, or 2, you just full send and you chunk someone out or kill them, and that's a 1 for 1. So that means that everyone turns around onto you and then your team can walk forwards. But none of that happens, and the front to back didn't work. We saw it in the second fight. So the 2 examples of fights of flanking and front to back weren't executed properly. I feel like everything was just a bit out of line.
It's also tough because I feel like, apart from the Malphite ult, it's really hard to like force the Aphelios flash away. They don't have like a thresh hook or something that you can just, if you have control inside of a bush, you can like pop that. So they almost have to like throw away and engage that Hans is going to be flashing away from and then looking for another play. Also, like, once they lose control over the map, after they lose those 2 fights, it becomes really challenging to set stuff up. Because one of the best things about the Neeko changes is she's become a much better pick champion, I think, in the sense of like, if you are able to set up, you know, with your clone, you almost bait the, or not with the clone, with the transform, you can bait the enemy team sort of into you and sort of draw them inside your like effective like threat range. But obviously when you're the one being pushed out and you're the one that has to walk into the dragon fight or something, it makes it much harder to set up a pick, and it makes it much easier for the Aphelios to sort of play on the outside of your engage range.
There was one moment though when Hans Summer seemed to forget that he was playing with a Milio. I thought he was playing with a Thresh, just walked straight into 3
Do we have
enemies.
the clip of that fight? So this fight was beautiful. A couple minutes before this, it was a dance around mid, and G2 kiting around, Fnatic forcing them back, and that was the pressure point of like Fnatic threatening and engage. I think the mechanics in these fights were really good to see. It was just Hansama went way too deep, and G2 were pushed back despite being ahead, and that's just the way that these comps function. Then Fnatic regroup, but they're already chunked out a bit. Then they try to engage, I believe it is, onto Oscar. Oscar's flash, fantastic. You might be like, well, why didn't he ult away instead of flash? It's a waste. There's no point ulting. You need to save it for the fight. And this is exactly why.
Yeah, Hans is like, oh, I can kill him, right? Just one more auto with the Gale Force. Oh, that's not actually enough, and now we're chain CC'd into Oblivion. And that was the only time we actually saw the ultimates comboed. I think the majority of fights, shockingly, like Oscar died either without getting his ult off or using his ult just to run away. Because that Maokai just made his life so hard. The charms too from Cap.
I can really see what Hans was going for there, though. If you, like, his Gale Force forwards there is not a I can kill Malphite before he ults me. It's a I know Malphite's going to ult me. If I flash this, the fight's over. So he Gale Forces in knowing he's going to get Malphite ulted, but he didn't react fast enough. If he flashed backwards on a Malphite ult, he's dead, Baron's gone, and the game's won. So I can see why he goes for that really aggressive play, just a slight misplay.
Yeah, he said it in the interview too. He knows he just barely missed out on the timing.
Can we be lenient on Fnatic as well? Because they've had such an impressive weekend so far. This G2 has been a lineup the whole of this year so far. So what we're seeing from Fnatic, yes, okay, there were obviously some issues there. They couldn't quite find the flexibility to find the comeback, especially with that composition, but there's signs of life.
I mean, overall, like a 2-on week, like very successful opening for Fnatic. I think we saw, like, obviously Noah coming to the roster and looking strong. I think that the 2v2 laning got a little bit awkward here with like Trymbi just getting run down inside of the lane. That's something they can shake off very easily. But I do want to pinpoint, I think a big like learning of theirs can be like, how do we actually work together to communicate how we're engaging, because it didn't seem completely cohesive between the solo laners.
Well, we'll see both of these teams return in week 2 of the Summer Split, and only one team so far has got a 3-0 clean sheet. That is Mad Lions, but they're not playing next. We've already seen all 3 of their games this week. Next up, we have got Vitality versus Team Heretics to close out week 1.
Oh, waiting to see if the Cozy Campfire will help out. Aqua Prison comes back, and Summer just shreds through Trymbi, turning him to sushi. And Razork's looking for the first kill here for Fnatic. This should be easily secured, and it is.
Okay, guys, I'm on. Nico. Just flash. I got him. We win this, by the way. Go. Play together. Look. Yeah. Nice. Nice. That's an ace. Good job.
They're looking to enter. Okay.
He uses the ult defensively. Continuing to run that move like Vigilance, done so much. Summer's Gale